20 Black actors who tragically passed away in 2025. 2025 did not just take names from the screen, it took voices, faces, and memories that shaped generations. Some were legends we grew up watching. Some were rising talents whose stories ended far too soon. And some were quiet pioneers whose impact was bigger than the headlines ever showed. In this video, Remembered Lives channel looks back at Black actors who passed away in 2025, honoring their work, their struggles, and the legacy they left behind. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe, because every life remembered here deserves more than silence. And tell us in the comments, which of these actors left the deepest mark on your heart? Malcolm Jamal Warner. Malcolm Jamal Warner was more than a familiar face from a beloved sitcom. For millions of viewers, he was a piece of home. Long before streaming platforms made television endless, there was one night of the week when families gathered in front of the screen, and Warner's Theo Huxtable became one of the most recognizable teenagers in America. On The Cosby Show, which aired from 1984 to 1992, he played the only son in the Huxtable household, appearing through all 8 seasons and earning an Emmy nomination in 1986. He was funny without trying too hard, vulnerable without becoming weak, and believable in a way that made audiences feel they were watching a real young man grow up, not just a character written for television. But what made Malcolm's career so remarkable was what happened after that early fame. Many child stars spend the rest of their lives trying to escape one role. Warner did something harder. He respected the role that made him famous while proving he had more to give. He went on to star in Malcolm and Eddie, Read Between the Lines, and later built a strong dramatic presence in The Resident. In his final years on screen, he continued taking meaningful guest roles, including a dramatic arc on 911. His career stretched across more than 4 decades, not only as an actor, but also as a director, poet, musician, and creative voice who cared deeply about Black culture and representation. Then, on July 20th, 2025, tragedy struck. While swimming at Playa Cocles in Costa Rica, Warner was pulled into deeper water by a strong current and died in an accidental drowning. He was only 54. The news hit especially hard because he was not remembered only for a performance. He was remembered for the warmth, intelligence, and steadiness he brought into people's lives. Malcolm Jamal Warner left behind a legacy that cannot be measured only in credits. He gave a generation a brother, a son, a friend, and a reminder that quiet talent can echo for a lifetime. Presley Chweneyagae. Presley Chweneyagae's rise was the kind of story cinema was made for. A young performer from South Africa steps into one difficult role, carries an entire film on his shoulders, and suddenly the world has to pay attention. Born in McEachin, he came from a country whose film industry had long fought for global recognition. Then came Tsotsi, the 2005 crime drama directed by Gavin Hood and based on Athol Fugard's novel. Chweneyagae played the title character, a young man shaped by violence, poverty, and emotional survival, yet still capable of being changed by an unexpected encounter with innocence. It was not an easy role. It required silence, danger, pain, and humanity, sometimes all in the same scene. When Tsotsi won the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film in 2006, it became the first South African film to achieve that honor. For Chweneyagae, who was only in his early 20s when the movie reached international audiences, the success was life-changing. But he did not become a one-film memory. His career expanded across theater, television, and cinema, proving that his talent was not built on one lucky break. He appeared in projects such as Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom, and became widely known to South African television audiences through The River, where his screen presence reached a new generation. What separated Presley from many performers was his ability to make complicated men feel human. He did not need polished glamour to hold the camera. His strength came from emotional weight, the sense that every look carried a history, every pause had a wound behind it. He was also a writer and director, co-authoring the stage play Relativity with Paul Grootboom, showing that storytelling for him was not limited to acting alone. On May 27, 2025, Presley Chweneyagae died at the age of 40. His agency confirmed his passing, though no cause of death was disclosed in the official confirmation reported by AP. South Africa mourned him as one of its most gifted actors, and rightly so. His life was brief, but his impact traveled far beyond borders. Through Tsotsi and beyond, he helped carry South African cinema onto the world stage, and left behind performances that still speak with raw, unforgettable power. Kimberly Hébert Gregory. Kimberly Hébert Gregory did not need an enormous spotlight to take over a scene. She had the kind of presence that could turn a supporting role into the part people remembered afterward. Born in Houston, Texas, she built her craft through education, discipline, and theater before many television viewers ever knew her name. She studied psychology at Mount Holyoke College, later earned a master's degree in social work from the University of Chicago, and carried that deep understanding of people into her performances. Her acting was never flat or decorative. It had layers, rhythm, intelligence, and emotional pressure underneath every line. Her breakthrough came with HBO's Vice Principals, where she played Dr. Belinda Brown, a school principal caught in the chaos of ambition, ego, and sabotage around her. In a series filled with loud personalities, Gregory gave the story its moral center. She could be sharp, funny, wounded, furious, and dignified without losing control of the character. That balance made Dr. Brown more than a victim of the plot. She became the person audiences rooted for, even when the world around her seemed determined to humiliate her. Her co-stars later remembered her as a powerful, generous performer, and those tributes reflected what viewers already understood. Kimberly Hébert Gregory made every role feel fully lived in. Beyond Vice Principals, she worked across television, film, and voice acting. Her credits included Grey's Anatomy, Better Call Saul, The Chi, Kevin Probably Saves the World, Genius, Aretha, and the animated series Craig of the Creek. She also appeared in films such as 5 Feet Apart and Miss Virginia, showing a range that moved easily between comedy, drama, and grounded realism. On October 3, 2025, Kimberly Hébert Gregory died at the age of 52. Her death was announced publicly by her ex-husband, actor Chester Gregory. No official cause of death was disclosed in the major reports. That detail matters because her story deserves truth, not speculation. What can be said with certainty is this: she left behind a career built on craft, courage, and precision. Kimberly Hébert Gregory may not have always been given the largest roles, but she gave every role weight. And in the history of Black actors we lost in 2025, her name belongs with honor. Isaiah Whitlock Jr. Isaiah Whitlock Jr. was one of those actors who could arrive halfway through a scene and instantly change the temperature of the room. He did not rely on grand gestures or forced intensity. His power came from timing, expression, and a voice that audiences recognized almost immediately. Born in South Bend, Indiana, Whitlock originally seemed headed toward a different future. He attended Southwest Minnesota State University on a football scholarship, but after injuries altered that path, acting became the door that opened. He later trained at the American Conservatory Theater, turning an unexpected detour into a career that would span more than 4 decades. To many viewers, he will always be remembered as Senator Clay Davis in HBO's The Wire. The role could have been played as a simple symbol of corruption, but Whitlock made Davis unforgettable. Charming, slippery, theatrical, and strangely magnetic. His stretched catchphrase became part of television culture, but the performance was bigger than one line. He captured the machinery of political survival: the smile, the denial, the calculation, the performance of innocence. In a show famous for moral complexity, Clay Davis stood out because Whitlock knew how to make dishonesty entertaining without making it harmless. His career went far beyond Baltimore politics. Whitlock appeared in Veep as George Maddox, worked frequently with Spike Lee, and built an extensive filmography that included 25th Hour, Red Hook Summer, Chirac, Black Klansman, and Da 5 Bloods. He also appeared in series and films such as Your Honor, The Good Cop, and Cedar Rapids. Reports noted that he accumulated more than 120 screen credits, the mark of a working actor trusted by directors because he could bring texture to almost any story. On December 30th, 2025, Isaiah Whitlock Jr. died in New York at the age of 71 after a brief illness, according to reports citing his representatives. His passing was felt deeply by fans of prestige television, film lovers, and collaborators who understood the value of his craft. He was not simply a character actor in the background. He was a scene shaper, a rhythm maker, a performer who could make a small role feel essential. In a year marked by painful losses among Black actors, Isaiah Whitlock Jr. left behind a body of work that remains sharp, memorable, and unmistakably his. Danielle Spencer. Danielle Spencer entered television history before she was even old enough to understand the full weight of what she represented. In the late 1970s, when Black teenagers were still rarely centered on network sitcoms, What's Happening gave audiences something fresh, a funny, lively, working-class story about young Black life in Los Angeles. And right in the middle of it was Spencer, as Dee Thomas, the sharp-eyed little sister who could steal a scene with one look, one perfectly timed insult, or one unforgettable warning. Ooh, I'm gonna tell mama. The show ran on ABC from 1976 to 1979 and became one of the early American sitcoms to focus on Black teenagers, with Dee's deadpan humor helping turn the series into a lasting cultural memory. What made Danielle's performance so special was how natural it felt. She was not playing a polished, overly sweet television child. Dee was smarter than the boys, quicker than the adults expected, and never afraid to say exactly what everyone else was thinking. Her comedy had bite, but it never felt forced. Even as a child actor, Spencer understood rhythm, the pause before the punchline, the stare before the roast, the confidence that made Dee more than a side character. She later reprised the role in What's Happening Now, proving that the character still had a place in viewers' hearts years after the original series ended. Her life away from the camera was marked by resilience. At age 12, while the show was still in production, Spencer survived a serious car accident that left her in a coma for 3 weeks and caused long-term medical complications. Yet she continued forward, eventually becoming a veterinarian and earning a doctorate in veterinary medicine from Tuskegee University in 1993. That second career revealed another side of her, not just a performer, but a healer, an advocate for animals, and a woman determined to build a meaningful life beyond childhood fame. On August 11, 2025, Danielle Spencer died at a hospital in Richmond, Virginia, after a years-long battle with cancer. She was 60. Her passing closed the chapter on a life shaped by humor, endurance, and reinvention. But Dee Thomas still lives in reruns, in memories, and in the laughter of viewers who remember that sometimes the smallest person in the room can leave the biggest impression. Lynn Hamilton. Lynn Hamilton belonged to a generation of Black actresses who had to build careers with patience, discipline, and extraordinary dignity. Born Alzenia Lynn Hamilton in Yazoo City, Mississippi, she came of age at a time when opportunities for Black women in American film and television were limited, often narrow, and rarely equal. But Hamilton did not let the industry define the size of her talent. She studied acting at Chicago's Goodman School of Drama, built her foundation on stage, and eventually created a screen career that lasted more than 5 decades. Her work moved across Broadway, film, sitcoms, dramas, and soap operas, not loudly, but steadily, with the confidence of a performer who understood the power of presence. To many viewers, she will always be remembered as Donna Harris on Sanford and Son. Opposite Red Fox's explosive Fred Sanford, Hamilton brought balance. Donna was warm, composed, intelligent, and strong enough to stand beside one of television comedy's most unpredictable characters without disappearing into the background. That was not easy, Fred Sanford could dominate a scene with a shout, a joke, or a sudden complaint. But Hamilton gave Donna a quiet authority that made their relationship believable. She was not just the girlfriend, she was grace under pressure, and that grace became part of the show's emotional texture. Then came another beloved role, Verdie Foster on The Waltons. In a series built around family, hardship, and moral lessons, Hamilton brought depth to a character who represented wisdom, strength, and lived experience. Her credits also included Roots, The Next Generations, Dangerous Women, The Golden Girls, NYPD Blue, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and early film work such as Shadows, Brother John, Buck and the Preacher, and Lady Sings the Blues. Each appearance added to a body of work that reflected range without ever needing spectacle. On June 19, 2025, Lynn Hamilton died of natural causes at the age of 95, surrounded by grandchildren, loved ones, and caregivers. Her passing felt like the fading of a bridge to an earlier era of television, an era she helped shape through dignity, craft, and persistence. Lynn Hamilton may not always have received the loudest celebration during her lifetime, but her legacy is clear. She opened space, carried herself with elegance, and gave generations of viewers performances that still feel human, grounded, and quietly powerful. Kenneth Washington. Kenneth Washington's career belongs to an important chapter in American television history. The chapter where Black actors were still fighting to be seen not as background figures, but as regular, meaningful presences on screen. Born in Mississippi in 1936 and later raised in California, Washington built his career during an era when opportunity was limited, visibility was rare, and every role carried more weight than the lines on the page. He became best known for playing Sergeant Richard Baker in the sixth and final season of the CBS sitcom Hogan's Heroes, joining the series in 1970 after Ivan Dixon's departure. That casting mattered. At the time, he became one of the few Black actors with a regular role on a network sitcom, appearing in a show watched by millions across America. But Kenneth Washington was never only one role. Before and after Hogan's Heroes, he moved through some of television's most recognizable programs of the 1960s and 1970s. His credits included Star Trek, I Dream of Jeannie, My Three Sons, Marcus Welby, M.D., The Rockford Files, and Petticoat Junction. He also appeared in the 1973 science fiction film Westworld, a project that later gained renewed attention for its futuristic ideas about artificial intelligence, robots, and entertainment turned dangerous. Washington had a calm, grounded screen presence, the kind that did not need to overpower a scene to make it stronger. He brought credibility, timing, and quiet authority wherever he appeared. After stepping away from acting, Washington did something deeply meaningful. He turned experience into education. He returned to school, earned a degree from Loyola Marymount University, and later taught at Loyola Marymount and Southwest College in Los Angeles, including courses connected to speech, oral interpretation, and Black actors in film. In other words, he did not simply pass through Hollywood. He helped preserve and explain the history he had lived. Kenneth Washington died on July 18, 2025, at the age of 88. A later report, citing his death certificate, stated that his death was related to cardiopulmonary arrest and prostate cancer, with respiratory failure and aspiration pneumonia listed as contributing factors. At the time of his passing, he was remembered as the last surviving main cast member of Hogan's Heroes. His legacy is not loud, but it is lasting. A steady performer who opened space, carried dignity, and helped make Black presence on mainstream television impossible to ignore. Brandyn Barbara Artis. Brandyn Barbara Artis had the kind of career that reminds us how many powerful performers shape Hollywood from the edges of fame. She may not have been a household name to every viewer, but her work crossed film, television, theater, literature, and lived experience with a rare kind of persistence. The transcript originally misnames her, but the correct name is Brandyn Barbara Artis. She was an actress whose screen credits included George Lucas's first feature film, THX 1138, as well as At the Top of the Pyramid and The Doctor. Her career also reached television through appearances on Man from Atlantis, The White Shadow, Knots Landing, Dynasty, and General Hospital. What makes Artis's story especially interesting is that she did not arrive in entertainment from a predictable path. She was also a veteran of the U.S. Air Force, a detail that gives her life story a wider frame than acting alone. Before the cameras, before the scripts, before the credits, there was discipline, service, and a life outside the usual Hollywood pipeline. That range of experience gave her artistic identity more texture. She understood performance not just as glamour, but as survival, expression, and transformation. Her appearance in THX 1138 connects her to a fascinating moment in film history. Released in 1971, the movie came before George Lucas became globally associated with Star Wars. It was cold, experimental, futuristic, and visually striking. A very different kind of science fiction from the blockbuster universe Lucas would later create. For Artis, being part of that film meant being tied to the early work of one of cinema's most influential directors. Yet she did not remain limited to one screen moment. Across the following years, she continued appearing in dramas, soaps, and television series that demanded adaptability from working actors. Artis was also a creator beyond acting. She wrote the autobiographical one-woman play Sister Girl, and later published the romance novel Running Barefoot in Paris in 2011. Those projects show a woman determined to tell stories in her own voice, not only speak words written for her by others. Brandyn Barbara Artis died on March 31, 2025, at the age of 81. Reports stated that she had battled breast cancer and died at her home in Los Angeles. Her passing deserves to be remembered not with exaggeration, but with respect. She was a veteran, actress, writer, and creative spirit whose body of work reflected versatility, endurance, and the quiet strength of a performer who kept creating across many stages of life. James McEachin. James McEachin lived several lives before most audiences ever knew his name. He was not the kind of performer whose story began neatly on a stage or inside a studio. His journey began in North Carolina, moved through the U.S. Army, and carried the weight of war long before Hollywood entered the picture. At just 17, he joined the military, later serving in the Korean War, where he was badly wounded in an ambush and left for dead before being rescued. That experience did not become a footnote in his life. It shaped the authority, restraint, and emotional gravity he would later bring to the screen. McEachin died on January 11, 2025, at the age of 94. No official cause of death was given in the report. After returning home, McEachin worked as a firefighter and police officer in New Jersey, then found another path in Southern California. Before becoming widely known as an actor, he built a music career under the name Jimmy Mack, working as a songwriter, composer, talent manager, producer, and label owner. He collaborated in circles that included Otis Redding and the Furies, giving him a creative foundation that stretched beyond acting alone. His first film role came in I Crossed the Color Line, also known as The Black Klansman, and from there, the door opened to a long screen career. What made McEachin stand out was his quiet command. He appeared in films such as True Grit and Hello, Dolly, and in classic television series including Dragnet, Adam 12, and Hawaii Five-0. In 1973, he made history with Tenafly, playing a private detective in a primetime drama at a time when black leading roles on American television were still rare. He also appeared in 4 Clint Eastwood films: Coogan's Bluff, Play Misty for Me, Every Which Way But Loose, and Sudden Impact. Later, audiences came to know him through the Perry Mason television movies, where his presence added steadiness and credibility. Away from the camera, McEachin wrote books, created the one-man play Above the Call, Beyond the Duty, and remained committed to honoring soldiers and veterans. In 2005, he was appointed an Army Reserve Ambassador, a role carrying the protocol rank of a 2-star general. James McEachin left behind more than credits. He left behind the record of a man who survived battle, reinvented himself through art, and helped widen the image of black masculinity on American television. Lee Weaver. Lee Weaver was the kind of actor audiences often recognized before they remembered his name. And that, in many ways, tells you how much work he truly did. His career reached across nearly 7 decades, moving through sitcoms, dramas, animation, and film with the consistency of a performer who knew how to make even brief appearances feel alive. Born in 1930, Weaver began his television career in the 1950s, with one of his earliest screen credits coming on Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, in 1955. From there, he became part of the fabric of American television, showing up again and again in series that defined different generations of viewers. He died on September 22, 2025, at the age of 95, according to confirmation from his family, reported through The Hollywood Reporter and cited by Extra. Weaver's resume was remarkable for its range. Across nearly 150 credits, he appeared in multiple Bill Cosby-related series, including I Spy, The Bill Cosby Show, and The Cosby Show. He was also a regular voice performer on the animated series G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero from 1985 to 1986, and had a regular role on the Lonnie Anderson sitcom Easy Street. That ability to shift between live-action comedy, animation, and guest drama made him a dependable presence in an industry that often overlooked the value of veteran character actors. His guest appearances read like a map of television history. Sanford and Son, Good Times, The Jeffersons, Starsky and Hutch, Hill Street Blues, Different Strokes, 227, A Different World, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Living Single, Sister Sister, The Parkers, That's So Raven, and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He continued working into later life, with his final television appearances coming in Grace and Frankie in 2017 and 2020. Although television was where many viewers met him, Weaver also built an impressive film legacy. He appeared in Vanishing Point, Heaven Can Wait, The Onion Field, Wildcats, The Two Jakes, Bulworth, How Stella Got Her Groove Back, Donnie Darko, and The 40-Year-Old Virgin. His most widely remembered film role came in the Coen brothers' Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?, where he reached a new generation of moviegoers. Lee Weaver may not have been framed as a headline star, but his career tells a different kind of success story. The story of a black actor who kept working, kept adapting, and kept bringing truth to the screen for nearly 70 years. Allwell Ademola. Allwell Ademola was not just another name in Nollywood. She was one of those creative forces who seemed to belong to every corner of the industry at once. She acted, produced, directed, wrote, sang, and carried the discipline of someone who had been close to performance since childhood. Born and raised in Lagos, she began her journey early, with reports noting that her acting path started in the mid-1980s after she was selected for an NTA children's program, before later appearing on Tales by Moonlight, one of Nigeria's most memorable family television shows. From that early exposure, she grew into a performer whose work moved through film, theater, television, and music. What made Ademola stand out was her versatility. She was not limited to one lane, one language, or one type of role. She worked in Yoruba and English-language Nollywood, building a career that mixed screen acting with behind-the-camera creativity. Her credits and public profiles linked her to films such as You or I, Omo Emi, and Ile Wa, while Nigerian outlets also described her as a filmmaker, director, scriptwriter, and musician. In a film industry where consistency matters as much as fame, Ademola's long presence gave her a special kind of respect. She was not only seen by audiences, she was trusted by colleagues. Her story also carried a note of heritage and responsibility. Her family described her as Princess Allwell Ademola, a proud daughter of the Ademola family of Ogun State, and a great-granddaughter of the Alake of Egbaland. In their statement, they remembered her as a gifted creative who had distinguished herself from childhood until her passing as a thespian, actor, singer, and filmmaker. That tribute matters because it corrects the noise that often follows celebrity deaths. Her own family clarified that she died at 49, not 43, after earlier reports gave the wrong age. On December 27, 2025, Allwell Ademola died, leaving Nollywood in mourning. Reports said she had suffered a heart attack before being rushed to hospital, while her family confirmed the date of death and asked for prayers, strength, and dignity in the face of the loss. Her legacy is not built on one performance alone. It lives in the range of what she created, a career that stretched from childhood television to mature filmmaking, and a name that remains tied to the evolution of Nigerian screen storytelling. Columbus Irosanga. Columbus Irosanga was the kind of actor whose face could change the atmosphere of a Nollywood scene before he even spoke. For many viewers, he became unforgettable through the roles that demanded spiritual intensity, authority, and mystery, especially his portrayals of native doctors and chief priests. But reducing him to one screen image would be too simple. Irosanga was not only a veteran actor, he was also an academic, a mentor, and a theater practitioner whose influence stretched from film sets to lecture halls. He came from Okrika in Rivers State and was widely associated with the University of Port Harcourt, where he served as a senior lecturer in the Department of Theater Arts. His most famous role was connected to Isakaba, the Nollywood blockbuster in which his portrayal of Igbudu helped cement his reputation among audiences who loved traditional, spiritual, and action-driven Nigerian cinema. The power of that role was not just in costume or dialogue, it was in the stillness, the stare, the command, the sense that something ancient had entered the frame. In an industry often built on speed and emotion, Irosanga brought weight. He understood how to make belief feel cinematic. But behind that screen presence was a man deeply connected to training and scholarship. His academic role at the University of Port Harcourt meant he was shaping the next generation of performers, not simply appearing before audiences himself. Vanguard reported that he mentored numerous aspiring actors, while Punch noted that his career earned him several awards, including recognition from AMAA, City People Entertainment Awards, AMVCA, and Best of Nollywood. That combination, actor and teacher, made his loss felt across two worlds, entertainment and education. On February 6, 2025, Columbus Irosanga's death was announced publicly by fellow actress Hilda Dokubo, who described the loss as heavy for Uniport, Rivers State, and Nollywood. Importantly, Vanguard reported that the cause of death had not been disclosed, so any claim beyond that should be avoided. What can be said with certainty is powerful enough. Columbus Irosanga helped define a recognizable lane in Nollywood performance, gave dignity to roles rooted in culture and tradition, and left behind students, colleagues, family, and fans who understood that his voice belonged to an era of Nigerian cinema that will not be easily replaced. Patience Pat Ugwu. Patience Pat Ugwu belonged to the younger wave of Nollywood performers whose careers were built not only through film roles, but also through visibility, personality, and direct connection with fans. Known professionally as Pat Ugwu and popularly called Sugar Girl, she represented a generation of Nigerian actresses who came up during the digital expansion of Nollywood, when films, social media, YouTube distribution, and online fan culture were beginning to overlap more strongly than ever. She was not yet a decades-long veteran, but she had already made enough of an impression for her death to shake colleagues and viewers across the industry. Her screen work included films such as Lack of Money in 2018, Port Harcourt Lady in 2019, and Twist of Fate in 2020, titles cited in Nigerian press coverage after her passing. Those roles placed her within the everyday storytelling language of modern Nollywood. Family pressure, survival, romance, betrayal, ambition, and moral consequences. Pat's image also extended beyond acting. Reports described her as an actress, model, and fitness personality, showing how she shaped a public identity that mixed entertainment, lifestyle, beauty, and personal branding. In a fast-moving industry where many performers fight to be noticed, she understood the importance of being present, recognizable, and active. But the saddest part of Pat Ugwu's story is how suddenly it ended. On February 5, 2025, Nigerian outlets reported that she had died at the age of 35. Vanguard wrote that the cause of death was not immediately clear, while colleagues including Emeka Okoye and Kevin Mike publicly mourned her, remembering her as part of their Nollywood family. That uncertainty should not be filled with rumors. In a tribute video or article, the honest version is the strongest one. Pat Ugwu died young, her colleagues were devastated, and no verified public cause of death was confirmed in the early reports. Her funeral arrangements were also reported shortly after the announcement, with a wake scheduled for February 6th and burial on February 7, 2025, at her father's compound in Enugu State. For fans, her passing became another painful reminder that Nollywood's losses in 2025 were not limited to elderly legends. Patience Pat Ugwu left while her career still felt unfinished, but the roles she played, the energy she projected, and the grief that followed her death show that her name had already found a place in the story of Nigerian screen entertainment. Nkechi Nweje. Nkechi Nweje was one of those Nollywood actresses whose work felt familiar in the best possible way. She was not built around spectacle or noise. She became beloved through roles that carried warmth, authority, pain, and emotional truth. In an industry famous for dramatic twists and intense family stories, Nweje often gave audiences the kind of presence they understood immediately. The mother, the advisor, the woman who had seen enough life to speak with weight. Premium Times described her as renowned for compelling portrayals of motherly roles, and that description captures why viewers responded to her so strongly. She gave those parts dignity, not routine. Her film credits included Royal War, Festival of Sorrow, and Coming Back from Congo. These were the kinds of projects where emotional credibility mattered. In Nollywood, a motherly role can be central to the moral architecture of the story. She may warn, forgive, confront, suffer, or hold a family together when everyone else is breaking apart. Nweje understood that responsibility. She made those characters feel lived in, not generic. Her performances carried the quiet force of someone who knew that a raised voice was not the only way to command attention. The news of her death came in March 2025, adding to an already painful year for the Nigerian film community. Premium Times reported that producer Stanley Ontop confirmed her passing, saying she died on Friday after a brief illness. The outlet also noted tributes from colleagues, including Rita Edochie, Buchi Dortmund, Asa Ikuku, Destiny Ediko, and Anita Joseph, reflecting how widely she was respected within the industry. Pulse Nigeria reported that she was 60 years old and cited a tribute stating she was born on June 6, 1964, from Onitsha Ado in Onitsha, Anambra State, married to Dr. Azubuike Nweje and a mother of 6. What makes Nkechi Nweje's passing especially poignant is that her public image was tied to care, on-screen and, according to colleagues, off-screen as well. She was remembered as a mentor, a friend, and a great Nollywood actress. Her most recent public engagement, according to Premium Times, was the release of her film, The Debt, which had premiered on YouTube shortly before her death. That detail gives her story an emotional final note. Even near the end, her work was still reaching audiences. Nkechi Nweje left behind more than a list of films. She left behind characters that felt like family, and in Nollywood, that kind of legacy is never small. Kayode Peters. Kayode Peters Adewumi, widely known as Kayode Peters, was one of the creative engines behind modern Nigerian television comedy. He was not only an actor, he was also a producer, director, theater practitioner, and storyteller whose work helped shape the tone of early 2000s Nollywood sitcom culture. While some performers become famous by staying in front of the camera, Peters built his legacy by doing both. performing when needed, but also creating the spaces where other actors could shine. His death on June 28, 2025, in Toronto, Canada, after a prolonged illness, was confirmed by his family. He was 49. Peters rose to prominence through television at a time when Nigerian comedy was developing its own fast, energetic, urban rhythm. His name became closely connected to Flatmates, the hit comedy series that became a familiar part of Nigerian television life in the early 2000s. He was also associated with Extended Family, another project remembered for its comic timing and relatable domestic situations. These were not just shows designed to make people laugh. They helped define a generation of Nigerian screen humor, sharp, situational, expressive, and rooted in everyday life. What made Kayode Peters important was the way he connected theater discipline with television accessibility. He understood that comedy needs structure, timing, and emotional truth. A joke lands harder when the character feels real. A sitcom works better when the audience recognizes the household, the pressure, the ego, the misunderstanding, and the chaos. Peters brought that understanding into his productions, making him a respected figure not only among viewers, but also among actors and comedians who passed through his creative world. Nigerian reports described him as a significant contributor to contemporary theater and television, and his work was remembered for blending humor with social commentary. When news of his passing broke, tributes came from fans, colleagues, and the wider entertainment community. The grief made sense. Kayode Peters had helped build laughter into the architecture of Nigerian television. His name may not be as globally recognized as some Nollywood stars, but his influence runs through the careers he supported, the shows he shaped, and the homes he entertained. In a year marked by painful losses among Black actors and screen creators, Kayode Peters deserves to be remembered as a builder, someone who gave Nigerian comedy structure, rhythm, and staying power. Monalisa Ayobami Stephen. Monalisa Ayobami. Stephen was part of a newer Nollywood generation, one shaped by film, social media, public conversation, and direct audience engagement. She was known as an actress, model, media personality, content creator, and body positivity advocate. But her visibility came from more than screen appearances alone. Monalisa built a public identity around confidence, self-expression, and difficult conversations about body image, mental health, and self-love. In an entertainment culture where women are often judged harshly for appearance and personality, she chose to speak loudly, sometimes controversially, but always in a way that made people pay attention. Her career reflected the changing face of Nollywood fame. Earlier generations often became known mainly through cinema releases or home video distribution. Monalisa's era was different. Actors could reach audiences through Instagram, interviews, online debates, brand work, modeling, and digital content. She understood that world. She was not just waiting for roles to define her. She used her platform to shape her own narrative. Nigerian media described her as someone who frequently sparked discussions around body image, mental health, and self-worth, topics that made her both admired and debated. That is why her death felt sudden and unsettling to many fans. On May 13, 2025, Monalisa Stephen died in Lagos. Vanguard reported that her passing was confirmed after she suffered from low blood sugar and internal bleeding, with the news made public by Seun Olukatui, CEO of Best of Nollywood, and confirmed by a close family member. The Nation also reported that she died after health complications and noted her reputation as a body positivity advocate and media personality. She was 33. For a tribute video, her story should not be reduced to speculation, gossip, or online controversy. The respectful truth is stronger. Monalisa Ayobami Stephen was a young Nollywood actress and public figure who used her visibility to challenge beauty standards and speak about emotional struggles many people hide. Her screen career was still developing, and her public voice was still evolving. Losing her at 33 gave her story a painful, unfinished quality. but it also reminds viewers that impact is not measured only by age or filmography. Sometimes, it is measured by the conversations someone was brave enough to start. Njemanze. Njemanze was one of those Nollywood faces that longtime viewers did not need a title card to recognize. He belonged to the generation of actors who helped define the emotional language of Nigeria's home video era, a period when stories moved quickly, budgets were often tight, but performances had to be strong enough to pull entire families around the television. Njemanze rose to prominence in the 1990s, and Nigerian reports remembered him for compelling appearances in classic titles such as Tokunbo, Pounds and Dollars, Atosa, Isakaba, Osufia in London, Brainbox, and Igbotic Love. What made his work stand out was not just visibility, but presence. Njemanze carried the kind of expressive delivery that fit Nollywood's most intense stories: family betrayal, moral conflict, spiritual fear, poverty, greed, love, and survival. In films like Isakaba, where tension and tradition often collided, actors needed more than dialogue. They needed eyes that could suggest danger, pain, or warning before a scene fully unfolded. Njemanze had that quality. He could make a role feel lived in, whether he was playing a man under pressure, a figure caught in crisis, or a character whose choices pushed the story toward consequence. His importance also comes from the era he represented. Before today's streaming platforms, glossy premieres, and international distribution deals, Nollywood was built by actors who worked constantly, often under demanding conditions, to keep stories moving. Njemanze was part of that foundation. He helped give shape to the kind of films that traveled across Nigeria, Ghana, and the African diaspora. Films watched in living rooms, markets, salons, buses, and neighborhood video centers. On July 19, 2025, Nigerian media reported that Njemanze had died after battling prostate cancer. TVC News stated that he had died the previous day, while other outlets also reported his passing at age 75. His death was another painful loss in a year that hit Nollywood especially hard. But his name remains attached to a powerful chapter of Nigerian cinema, the chapter where actors like him gave early Nollywood its urgency, its feeling, and its unforgettable human weight. Tolani Akintunde. Tolani Akintunde belonged to the earlier generation of Nigerian television faces who helped make everyday drama feel close, familiar, and unforgettable. Before Nollywood became increasingly digital, before streaming platforms changed the rhythm of discovery, television soaps were a major part of how audiences formed attachments to actors. Tolani found her place in that era, becoming known for roles in early 2000s Nigerian TV classics including Everyday People and Palace, both associated with producer Tajuddin Adepetu. For viewers who followed those shows, she was not simply a passing name. She was part of a period when Nigerian television characters felt like neighbors, relatives, colleagues, and people audiences expected to meet again the next day. Her acting career reflected a quieter kind of fame. She was not constantly in the headlines, and after relocating to the United Kingdom with her daughter, she reportedly maintained a lower public profile, ventured into business, and stepped away from the constant visibility of the entertainment scene. But the response to her death showed that audiences had not forgotten her. Sometimes, an actor's impact does not depend on endless publicity. It depends on the memory of a role, the emotional texture of a performance, and the way a face becomes tied to a specific chapter of popular culture. What made Tolani's story especially moving was the suddenness of the news. In May 2025, reports stated that she had died in the United Kingdom after suffering a heart attack. The news was first made public by media personality and Best of Nollywood Awards convener Seun Olokituyi, according to Nigerian outlets. Fans and colleagues reacted with shock, while tributes remembered her kindness, her screen work, and the joy she brought to people around her. For a respectful tribute, Tolani Akintunde should be remembered without exaggeration. Her story is powerful because it is grounded. A veteran Nollywood actress, a recognizable television presence, a mother, and a performer whose work belonged to the formative years of modern Nigerian screen culture. Her passing added another heavy note to 2025, a year that took many Black actors and entertainers far too quickly. But through everyday people, Palace, and the memories of viewers who still recognized her name, Tolani Akintunde remains part of Nollywood's living archive, one of the faces that helped shape the emotional language of Nigerian television. Looking back at these 20 lives, one question remains. How do we truly measure an actor's legacy? Is it by fame, awards, box office numbers, unforgettable characters, or the way their work quietly changed someone's life? Some of these stars were household names, while others carried entire scenes without ever receiving the recognition they deserved. But together, they remind us that Black cinema, television, and theater were built by many kinds of greatness. This is Remembered Lives channel, and we want to hear from you. Who do you think was the most underrated actor on this list? Who should have been celebrated more while they were still alive? Share your thoughts in the comments.